Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Grab a seat and hit subscribe if you haven't already, because today's update is one of those rare stories that warms the heart instead of igniting a scandal. We're talking about the couple everyone watches and whispers about, Gökberk Yıldırım and Cemre Arda. Their romance has seen its fair share of storms and sunshine, with pauses and reunions that kept headlines buzzing. But what unfolded over the past few weeks isn't about drama or rumors. It's about bravery, patience, and a promise finally coming true. For a long time, silence surrounded one painful detail: Gökberk's mother had kept her distance from their engagement. It wasn't a fight, it wasn't a public criticism, just a resolute quiet that spoke volumes. Those close to the family suggested she found the idea of her son marrying a famous actress difficult to accept. She comes from a world where life is measured in small gatherings, modest rituals, and neighbors who know each other by name. The blinding spotlight of celebrity didn't feel like a comfortable place to stand. And as the engagement moved forward, that silence grew heavier, casting a long shadow over joyful plans. Cemre could have stepped back. She could have protected her heart and her pride, hiding behind a public persona and letting the headlines do the talking. Instead, she chose something far braver. She leaned into patience. She decided to move toward the quiet rather than away from it, to answer a closed door with kindness instead of frustration. She wrote letters and careful, handwritten notes full of warmth rather than persuasion, sharing little pieces of herself, the small things that don't show up on magazine covers. The way she works through anxiety by cooking late at night, her attachment to old family recipes, the way she worries over Gökberk when the pace of his life gets too fast. She reached out privately as well, arranging visits that never made it to social media. There were no stylists and no staged photos. These moments were made of tea in simple cups and honest conversation at a kitchen table. And during one of those early conversations, she offered a line that, according to someone close to the family, stopped the room. She didn't ask to be seen as a star. She asked to be seen as the woman who cherishes their son. It wasn't a performance. It was a plea from the heart. But the turning point came recently, and it came without fanfare. Cemre traveled to Izmir by herself to meet with his mother face to face. No entourage, no cameras trailing her, no manager texting updates. She arrived alone, stayed in a quiet hotel not far from the neighborhood where he grew up, and let the city's evening breeze steady her. The conversation that followed wasn't easy. If you've ever walked across a bridge that seemed too far to cross, you know that first step is the hardest. There were pauses, confessions, and yes, tears. Past worries were put on the table, future fears were named. And amid all that, something softened. People who saw them together later that week said the shift was visible in their body language, the way they listened without interrupting, the way they allowed silence when words felt fragile. Cemre didn't push, she stayed. She answered questions. She acknowledged concerns about a life lived under constant scrutiny, about privacy, about the pace of a career that rarely sleeps. She promised something deeper than a glamorous image. A life where respect and family traditions would not be brushed aside for convenience. The city held its breath, and then the world saw the first sign that the ice had melted. A few days later, cameras caught Cemre walking arm in arm with Gökberk's mother in a jewelry store in Nişantaşı. They weren't hiding, they were simply living, choosing pieces with quiet care, comparing details, smiling at small discoveries. The photos spread like wildfire. On fan pages, in group chats, across the feeds of people who had followed this love story from the beginning. The comments filled up instantly. Many fans wrote that they had never doubted Cemre's sincerity. Others said it felt like watching a long-locked door finally open. A handful of the most shared posts called it the day a guarded heart finally found a reason to trust again. Then came the moment that sealed it. In a brief statement, elegant in its simplicity, Gökberk's mother spoke clearly for the first time. She said she had realized love doesn't look for permission, it asks for a blessing. She added that she would be present at the wedding. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. With those words, the weight that had sat on the couple's shoulders for months seemed to lift, and the breath the public didn't know it had been holding was finally released. The story, once mired in uncertainty, transformed into one of grace and reconciliation. Now the focus turns to their big day. Plans are underway for a ceremony in Bodrum with the Aegean unfolding like silk behind them. Friends say the wedding will blend the modern elegance of their careers with the heritage they were raised in. We're hearing about traditional touches honoring both families, the kind of details that grandparents bless with smiles. In a sweet and unpublicized gesture that has now been quietly confirmed, there will be a moment during the celebration dedicated to Gökberk's family. A visible thank you for the years that shaped him and for the acceptance that is now guiding them forward together. The industry, quick to applaud the loudest voices, has paused to praise something quieter, Cemre's grace. Colleagues have called her patient, steady, and wise beyond the hurricane of fame. She isn't being celebrated just for the role she plays on screen, but for this role off screen, one that required vulnerability, humility, and a strength that can't be faked. The phrase Bride of the Year has been whispered more than once, and for once it isn't about dresses or diamonds. It's about mending what fear tried to split. And then there's Gökberk. In a recent interview, visibly moved, he didn't hide what this meant to him. He spoke about the joy of seeing the two pillars of his life. His mother and the woman he wants to marry, step into the same frame, shoulder to shoulder. He confessed that he had wished for this since the moment he realized his relationship with Cemre was the one. Sometimes the greatest relief comes not when you win a fight, but when you discover you no longer have to. For him, this is that relief. If you've been online today, you know the digital world is sparkling with happiness. Fans are already crafting wedding playlists and guessing at the color scheme. Santorini keeps popping up in the comments as a dreamy honeymoon destination, and if we're judging by the consistency of the guesses, that island better prepare for a flood of well-wishers hoping to catch a glimpse. The couple hasn't confirmed a honeymoon plan, but that hasn't slowed down the celebration. It's rare to see the internet agree on something, and yet here we are, an entire timeline united in joy. What makes this chapter resonate is that it isn't built on a scandal or a publicity stunt. It's built on a quiet courage that is often overlooked in a noisy world. Cemre didn't win over a skeptical heart by grand gestures posted for clicks. She did it with time, presence, and honesty. She didn't ask to be adored, only to be understood. And that made all the difference. For anyone who has ever longed to be seen clearly, this is the part that lingers. We shouldn't overlook how much discipline it takes for a public couple to keep something private. For months, while blogs speculated and strangers played detective, they refused to attack or defend. They didn't broadcast their struggle or weaponize their pain. Instead, they nurtured something delicate behind closed doors. That restraint, rare as it is, may be why this ending feels so right. It echoes the best kind of love story. The kind that chooses tenderness, even when it would be easier to walk away. Those who know the family say that in the quiet aftermath of that Izmir meeting, small gestures led the way. A follow-up call that didn't need an agenda. A shared recipe that crossed the city in a message. An invitation to tea where nothing urgent had to be said. These were not headlines, they were handholds. Little by little, trust began to take root. By the time the cameras caught the pair in Nisantaşı, they weren't playing for the lens. They were simply continuing the conversation that had already begun. As wedding preparations accelerate, the vision taking shape is less about spectacle and more about meaning. We're hearing about a ceremony at sunset, about music that pays homage to their beginnings, about vows they've written privately that nod to their families and to the path they took to arrive here. There's a rumor that a close friend will step forward to share a brief reflection on what it took to bridge the distance between fame and family, and how that bridge became the strongest part of this love story. No one is trying to outshine the sea. They're letting it witness. Celebrity friends have been quick to cheer them on, but the praise isn't hollow. Many of these voices have lived through the pressure of constant attention. They know how brutal it can be when private frailties are dragged into public view. Their admiration for Cemre feels grounded and real. It's as if, for once, the conversation has shifted from outfits and ratings to character. And for a woman often celebrated for her poise, this is the tribute that will likely mean the most. Meanwhile, the city is brimming with anticipation. Florists have been whispering about color palettes. Tailors are working late hours. A venue in Bodrum has adjusted its lighting schedule to capture that perfect twilight. And somewhere in the middle of all this coordination, there is a mother choosing a dress, a son exhaling after a long-held breath, and a bride reminding herself that when she chose love, she chose everything that came with it, the uncertainty, the patience, and the possibility of a day like this. So where does this leave us? With a story that invites us to believe in slow miracles. With a reminder that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is show up without armor and still hope to be welcomed. With proof that love can be as gentle as it is strong. The woman once kept at arm's length is now the most anticipated guest, and the blessing she is bringing will echo louder than any song that plays that night. The greatest reconciliation didn't happen under a spotlight, it happened in the spaces no one saw. After months of speculation and confusion, after headlines that turned whispers into certainties they never were, Gökberk and Cemre have arrived at a place that feels earned. Not polished, not staged, earned. They have shown that between rumor and truth lies a path called patience, and if you walk it long enough, you find yourself at a door that finally opens. They didn't force it open, they waited until it did. And now, with invitations being sealed and plans being finalized, the focus can shift to what matters: two families gathering, a promise made, and a future beginning under a sky that has seen it all and still offers something new. Thank you for staying with me to the end of this update. If this story moved you, let us know in the comments how you're feeling about the wedding and the journey it took to get here. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. We'll be right here to bring you every tender moment and every beautiful surprise as Gökberk Yıldırım and Cemre Arda step into their next chapter, hand in hand, with blessings that were waited for, worked for, and finally, joyfully given.